Okay, next thing what we are going to do is quick roundup about rigging. So we are going to create really simple geometry, put the bones inside of that, and then adjust weights. First of all, we are currently on animation workspace where we left yesterday. So I want to reset my workspace to be Maya Classic, which is the workspace what I prefer. So I come up here to the right corner and select Maya Classic, and then my workspace is resetted. Next thing what I'm going to do is that I will create the geometry what I'm going to modify. So I need to open as well my modeling toolkit. So upper right corner, the square and the hammer. And then I'm going to jump into the side view by pressing spacebar and then to the side X. Then I'm going to access to the creation menu by pressing spacebar and holding it down. And from here I'm going to select create polygon primitives, and this time I'm going to create a cylinder with options window like this, and then I have my options here, and I'm going to change height to be 6, radius can be 1, axis divisions I'm going to change to be 6, and then I'm just going to press create. And now I have cylinder here. If I go back to the perspective view, I can see that there is cylinder. And then I'm pressing W, and the thing what I'm doing is that I will bring it up here onto the level of my grid. And next thing what I want to do is slice this cylinder to 6 parts. So I'm jumping back to my side view by pressing spacebar and selecting the multicut tool from my modeling toolkit. So pressing multicut with mouse's left, and then we have to remember press Ctrl down, so we get the whole loop which goes all the way around our cylinder. And I try to match these edge loops to uh, match my grid. So I'm pressing Ctrl down and then I'm pressing mouse's left to insert edge loop. And now I have to adjust my camera a bit. And now I have created 5 edge loops here with my multicut tool. So why I created 5 edge loop is that I'm going to put here 7 different joints, and for each edge loop I'm going to insert a joint, and the joint always need geometry where from bend. If we have 0 edge loops on this cylinder and we still put the bones inside, we cannot bend it because there is no uh, how should I put it, chance to bend. There is no limb. So the limbs have to be created also in the geometry, not only with the rigging tools. Okay, and let's keep this first exercise really simple. So we are not going to insert any more edge loops here. So the weight painting will be super simple. So now I'm pressing Q, so I'm accessing or I'm disabling the multicut tool at this point. And the next thing what I have to do for this model quickly is UVs, because before you start the rigging you usually want to do UVs. So if you messed up something in the rigging, you can export weight maps to the image files, and after that you can do various operations and quickly fix what you have messed up. So that's why it's important to have UVs before you start the rigging. And for the UVs, as you remember, we have this specific workspace. So we come up here, right corner, open the drop down menu and select UV editing. And actually we have these default UVs here already, because we didn't modify or we didn't create any new geometry out of our cylinder, but it's good to do the roundup as well from the UV editing. So for the start, here on the UV toolkit, we are going to open create section, and then we have to be sure that our model is on the object mode, and we can see that it's on the object mode because it's highlighted green. And then we are pressing camera based here on the creation section, and it's going to create a 3D projection to our 2D space. And next thing what we are going to do, we are going to insert seams. So I'm pressing my mouse's right down on top of my mesh and selecting edge, and then I'm opening this cut and sew section down here, and I'm starting to select these vertical edges here like this. And after that, when I have selected these vertical edges, I can press cut here. And now we can see that we have created this one long seam here, where from this object will be opened nicely. And then on the for the hat of my cylinder, I'm starting to select edges from the pre-existing seam here, and I'm selecting all of the edges of the top except this last one. And then I press cut. And I'm doing the same thing down here. And as you remembered, I earlier showed you this icon here, up here, grid. If I press it now and it's no more highlighted, the grid is hide temporarily, temporarily. So it's not on my way when I'm selecting edges. And from the bottom I will select as well these 5 edges and then press cut. And now when we have made all of our cuts, we can go to the face mode, select all the faces with the tracking selection by holding mouse's left down, and then come down here to the unfold section, and we can press unfold, and our cylinder is unfolded nicely. So I'm just going to press mouse's right down and select the UV selection and double click my UV shell. Press E and rotate it and press R so I can scale it into the 1 and 1 area like this. And I'm good with the map now, or I'm happy with it. And this was just a quick roundup about UV editing. And now we are going back for the rigging part. So I'm turning, first of all, I'm turning on the grid here in the 3D space again to be visible. And then I'm going here to the workspace and going back into the Maya Classic where I'm going to insert the bones into the geometry. I'm jumping into my side X view because bones have to be inserted in the orthographic view so we don't mess up the axes or the local axes of the bones. I'm changing my cylinder into the object mode, and the thing that I still want to do before proceeding is that if I open my channel box here and okay, currently my channel box is not docked here on the right side, so I have to reset my Maya Classic UI so I can get it here. Yeah, now it's docked here. So always if there is something wrong or something missing on your workspace, remember from the drop down menu you have also option to reset your current workspace, and then it should look like normal. So the thing that I wanted to show you here on the channel box is that again we have long inputs list, which means that we have some unnecessary history stored there, which we can remove by going into the edit and going here delete by type and then history, and now it's clean, now it's neat, and we can continue. It's like your browser history, you should delete it quite often. So next thing what we are going to do, we are inserting the bones, and for that we have to change our tool mode. So currently if you come up here left, we have this modeling tools on. So if I'm opening this drop down menu, I can see that there is rigging, animation, effects, rendering, etc. So next thing what we are going to do when we are inserting bones, we are rigging our mesh. So I'm opening the rigging section, and you can see if I toggle between modeling and rigging that the tools are changing here. So yeah, when I left this tab to the rigging, there is lots of more tools what we can use on this current state. And because I've resetted my workspace here in my outliner is now hidden, so I will press it on, which will make my bone naming easier. And before we start to insert bones, there is this one option what we want to turn on, is this small icon which looks like kind of square and the ice cream inside of it. It's called X-ray joints, and it will show the joints through the mesh, and it helps us to adjust the bones. So X-ray joints turned on, it's highlighted now and it means it's on. And then from the up here, when we have turned on rigging, we can open the skeleton, and then we have just the create joints tool. And we click it, and now we can see left here that the icon here changes and it's highlighted. So the joint tool is now active. And the first joint we want to create here in the origin, but actually there is still one option what we want to turn on. So to see the edges, like whole time, there is this cube with wireframe icon in between two balls, the checkerboard ball and semi-checkerboard ball, what we want to turn on. So now we can clearly see where we want to insert the joints. And we want to insert the joint always to the level of the edge loop what we have created, because then we know that it can bend from that point and it will look okay. So now when I have my joint tool still active, I'm pressing first my mouse left here in the origin and I get the joint. Then I'm proceeding to the next edge loop, or I'm moving my cursor to the next edge loop, and then I'm clicking there, and then to the next, clicking there, mouse is left, to the next, clicking mouse is left, and here clicking mouse is left, here, and then last joint here to the top, clicking mouse is left. And now we can see that here in the outliner appears to be new joint 1, and it has small plus sign or small plus icon next to it, and I'm pressing it to open the whole hierarchy, and I'm pressing that long that I will see all the joints what I have inserted. And currently we can still see that our joint tool is active, and we don't want it to be active anymore, because if it's still active and we are pressing here on our 3D space, we are going to create new joint. So I'm going to delete this last created joint by pressing Command C, and then now I have 7 joints, and I'm pressing Q to disable the joint tool. And next thing what I'm going to do is, of course, rename all of my joints. So the first joint I'm going to name tentacle underscore joint A, and then I'm just pressing Command A to copy it, or selected it, and Command C to copy it, and then I'm proceeding to joint 2, pressing Command V, and just changing this to joint B, joint C, joint D, Command V, and then joint E, F, and actually for this last one I can insert joint end. And now I have nice and neat naming convention going on here, and I know exactly what joint is what, and it makes my next work state much easier. So next thing what we want to do, if we come now into the perspective view, we don't see our skeleton or joints, so we have to turn on again this X-ray joints, so square with the ice cream cone in it. Now it's highlighted, and it means that we can see the joints. After that, I want that my P cylinder 1 is following my joint hierarchy. So my joint hierarchy is going to be driver or the parent for my geometry what, which is going to follow animation values what I will insert, or the keyframe values what I insert into the bones. So to be professional, I will rename my mesh as well, so this will be Tentacle Geo. So just double clicking assets here in the outliner, you can name those properly. And the next thing what we are going to do, we are selecting the tentacle joint A. So now we can see that when we are selecting tentacle joint A, also all the bones what are children or the driven by the tentacle joint A are highlighted. If we are selecting tentacle joint B, all the its childrens are highlighted, but the tentacle joint A is not highlighted because the tentacle joint B cannot control what the tentacle joint A is doing. So this hierarchy should be understood that only the parent can choose or order what the children is doing, not other way around. So the child object or child joint of parent cannot say what to do. Okay, but here in the outliner, selecting tentacle joint A, pressing shift down, and then selecting tentacle geo. And now we are coming up here to the skin tab. So we are skinning this geometry to our joints. And we are going to select this bind skin with the options window. So you have to select the square. And now we have options here. And now I can see that the options here are not default options. So every time you open this window, you can reset your last settings by coming up here to the edit and then select reset settings, and it will reset your earlier options. So now I reset it to be default for Maya, and next thing what I'm going to do is that I'm go through the options with what I'm going to bind the joints to the hierarchy. So bind to joint hierarchy, that's correct. Bind method close distance, that's correct. Classic linear is correct. Normalize weight, interactive, that's something what we have to select as well. Weight distribution distance, that's okay. Max influences can be decreased to number 3. And then all the other options are looking okay. And I can press bind skin. The next thing what I'm going to do is that I'm going to check how my binding is affecting. So first of all, if I click here in the empty area, I can see that my skeleton is now colorized, which means normally that it has been binded. So that's good information to us. And then I'm selecting joint tentacle joint D, and I can modify my joints by pressing E. So I want to rotate my joints, and now when I'm pressing E and selecting joints, I can see that they are quite nicely binded there, and I don't actually need to do any further adjustments with weight painting for this model. And we are actually going to do small animation for the model. Okay, now I have posed my skin or my tentacle geo. So I want to reset it. So I'm clicking the skin or the mesh to be active, and after that I'm going up here to the skin menu, and from here I'm going to select go to bind pose, and it will put my view or the our character or mesh into the default position. And next thing, when we want to animate, we are going to change the workspace. So up here we are going into animation, and now we can see that our view has changed. We have also graph editor here on top of our timeline, and the thing what needed to be checked before we start keyframe animation was that we go here up here to the windows, and then we go settings and preferences and open the preferences. Here in the preferences tab we are going to go to the time slider selections, And currently for me the playback is showing that it's 24 FPS x1, which is correct. If you have any other options here, for example play every frame, your animation won't be showing correct. So please select 24 FPS x1, then save. And the second option what we have to turn on before we are starting to insert keyframes is down here on the down right corner, auto keyframe toggle. So there is kind of keyframe in the middle of it on the icon, and then refreshing arrows going around it. This basically means that after we have inserted first keyframe onto the each joint, and the Maya will know that we want to use auto keyframe for that joint, and Maya will insert automatically always keyframe into the timeline when we are doing modifications. And then if we come here to our timeline, we can see that we have our time cursor highlighted with lighter gray, and we can now move it by pressing mouse left down. And currently our timeline is 120 frames long. That's maybe a bit too much, so I'm going to short my timeline for to be more or bit shorter to suit our animation better. So I'm coming around here and down part of the timeline, and here we can see that our timeline starts from frame 1, and on the other end there is frame 120, and now we can short this to be 30. And here on the graph editor, all the Maya's moving controls works as well. So with scrolling down mouse's wheel, I can zoom, and then pressing alt down and middle mouse button I can move it if I want to. We are going to look more closely these options today, but now we are doing the animation. So I'm selecting the tentacle joint B, and I'm pressing S. And when I'm pressing S here on the first frame, you can see that there appears to be animation keyframe, and then I'm going to select my tentacle joint C, and I'm pressing S and inserting keyframe for the first frame there. Same for tentacle joint D, tentacle joint E, and tentacle joint F. Okay, so now I have keyframe for all of those. And then I'm moving into the frame 5, because now when we have auto keyframe on, it will record always when we are doing changes to our joints. So if we stay on the keyframe number 1, we are going to override that keyframe, and then the animation won't happen. So before modifying anything or the joint rotations, please remember always to move on your timeline to make animation to happen. So then back to the tentacle joint B, and I have my rotation tool on, so hotkey for that was E, and now I'm rotating it a bit, and then I'm going to rotate as well tentacle joint C, D, E, and F. And now you can see here that we have a new keyframe on frame number 5, and then we can jump to frame number 10, and I'm again adjusting the joint rotation for the B, for the C, for the D, and for the A, and for the F, like this. And then I can go into the frame 15, and then again from the tentacle joint B, tentacle joint C, tentacle joint D, tentacle joint A, tentacle joint F. And here again the keyframe appears. And now we can play our small animation through. So we can come to this section here on the right down corner next to the timeline. There is play buttons, and when I go on top of play forward icon, it gives me helpful information. So it says play forwards, and pressing ESC the playback will stop. And now I just press play, and I can see that the tentacle is animating quite nicely. If I want to hide my pawns for the previewing my animation, I select tentacle joint A here in the hierarchy, and then I'm pressing H to hide my pawns temporarily. So when I'm hiding the parent or the root bone, it will hide as well the whole hierarchy, and I won't be seeing it. And now the next exercise for you is animate 30 FPS long animation, just free animation for this tentacle. And for the last tip, the most important thing is that if you accidentally record some odd value for your bones, you can either go on top of your keyframe and then override it, because we have auto keyframe on. So you just go on top of your keyframe and then modify it to change the value, or then you come here on top of the timeline and press mouse's right on top of the keyframe, and you get menu where from you can delete the individual keyframe, and it won't be animating or following that keyframe.